I guess that'll work. First period, I had them in class a little bit longer yesterday, so I talked to them a little bit on number 1. I couldn't find a difference between choice A and B. I think one of them probably was supposed to have a negative because one of them looks spaced out farther than the other one, but they both have 1, 5 and -1, -3. So, I mean, technically, if one of those is right, either one of them would be right. But it says using a graphing calculator, find the turning point. So what you would do, and the way I solved that, is I hit the y equals button on my calculator just like I was graphing it, typed all that in, and then went and looked at the graph, and I don't remember exactly what the graph looked like, but it'd be something along, have a couple of curves in it, like maybe it's fixing to draw up there. So it's asking for the turning points. So then you use the arrows on your key and move your cursor around and find out about what ordered pair those turning points are at. Okay? And it did end up being A. So check that now and make sure you can do that. If you need help on the calculator, if you don't know what I'm talking about, tell me and I'll help you. Am I right on it? Good? Did you get it, Caleb? This is not graphic. Alright, that zoom is funny. So we're going to go zoom 6. Alright, get back to normal. There you go. Did you get it? Alright, go, get out of that, hit enter, okay, hit second, y equals, oh, your stat parts are off, okay, get out of that, second quit, now hit your y equals again. Alright, hit zoom 6, there's somebody messed your zoom up. Alright, Chase has already gone on to number 2, just type that dude in your calculator. Everybody see a good graph on number 2? What would it be on that one? B. As in Boomland. 3, type that one. Now, 3 gives you a 0, so you could actually do it differently if you wanted to, but the easiest, fastest thing to do to save you time would be just to type 3 in your calculator and get a graph of it. No, I'm not. What's the matter with it? Hit y equals again. Let's make sure we got. Well, yours is not typed in right because it's doing 3 divided by x first. Okay, so you need to put that whole thing in a parentheses.
Or over.
Or use the fraction button. Let's see what you got typed in. Oh, there. Oh. Alright, anybody else on 2? Okay, 3, I did the same way like I was saying. Before I did though, I marked out choice A and D. Okay, because on 3 it told me, don't write with the highlighter. On 3 it told me it had a 0 of 1. So that meant a 0 of 1 means it has to be crossing the x-axis right there. And A and D did not. Then after that, it's got a positive 3, so that means it's got to go uphill first, so that had to be C. Okay, number 4 is another calculator, so 4 in a row I'm on the calculator here, and 4 can be tricky because of those decimals. So practice right now, type number 4 in your y equals like you're going to graph it, and then we'll talk about what we're looking for. Get that typed in good there. Okay, I was over Caitlin's shoulder, and hers showed something that looked like that. Now, there is more to that graph than that, but that's what shows up in that little 10 by 10 window that it defaults to. So it asks me to, number 4, approximate all the real zeros. So I'm looking for about what those points are that I see. So I can use my cursor on my arrows and move my cursor over those and see what they are. That one on the left is pretty tricky because the choice for that, it's not yet to -1, but the choice has got a -0.81 and a -0.82. That's pretty hard to differentiate between, so you got to hang on to both of those. A and C, they both have a -0.82 and a -0.81. B and D don't have anything near that, so at least you're down to a 50-50 so far with A and C. Then the next thing I notice, looking at A and C, trying to decide, A has got a 1.91, C has got a 1.91, so we can say this one here that we see is probably the 1.91. But then after that, A has got an 8.25, so there would be something else over here on our screen, and then C's got a 14.37. Remember, your screen defaults to a 10 by 10. So that 8 would show up on your screen. That 14 would not. So if you don't see it cross again, it's not crossing at the 8 number. It has to be the 14 one, right? So that would be C. That's why, Caleb, that I remember that first period they were zooming way out on that calculator because they wanted to see the 14 number. They didn't believe me. That's why your zoom was screwy.
And how do you zoom in to get a more precise number?
What you talking about, Willis? So see, look down there at the X. It's, oh, where did your mouse go? It jumped somewhere, didn't it? No,
It's right on. Yeah, it's right on. It's on the screen.
so you're looking at about -0.85 on that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty close to both of those -0.8s. So I just held on to A and C both because I couldn't tell. They was too close to both of those. And then when I moved over and checked this one out, that was close to both of these. See, they had both at the 1.91. So then I went to look for this one.
But what about this one?
Well, it didn't have the -0.8s.
Okay.
So that's why I marked both of those out. Does that make a little more sense now?
Yes. So you have to go all the way out.
I went over, I moved my cursor over to X equals 8 and saw if it was touching over there, and the graph's not even over there, is it? So it can't have an 8, so it can mark out 8. Now
What
why?
about 14?
Right, why can't I see the 14 one yet?
Oh.
Because it only goes to 10 on that graph, right? So 14 we would need to extend your calculator, make it bigger. Alright, on 5, I finally got to put my calculator down for a minute. Thank goodness. Y'all know I don't like the calculator stuff very much. It says, find the rational zeros of the polynomial and write in standard form. So, remember, other than graphing, the major stuff we've done this unit is synthetic division. So here you go. You got a 2x cubed, a 3x squared, a -23x, and an 18. Now, they didn't tell me what a 0 was, so I don't know what to plug in out there. When we did this in class, this is when we had to do the guess and check. We took the factors of 18, our constant, 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18, put them over the factors of our leading coefficient 2. I could do that here, but that would be more troublesome than it has to be. The smarter thing to do would be to use the choices to decide what to synthetically divide. So I look at my choices on number 5, and like number 1, or letter A, says x plus 1 and x plus 2. That means -1 and -2 would work, if that one's the right choice. So look through the choices. I'm seeing a -1 and a -2 on A, a 1 and a -2 on B, a 1 and a -1 on C, and a 9 on C. I think the parentheses might be in the wrong spot on C though. And then a 1 and a 2 on D. So 1, -1, 2, -2. Now you only got 4 to use trial and error on. So pick me one of those. 1, -1, or 2, -2.
2, -2.
That's 2. I want 1. Pick one. Just 2, okay? Thank you. Drop my 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I add and get 7. 7 times 2 is 14. I add and get -9. -9 times 2 is -18. I add and get 0. Good job. So 2 works. So to get 2, it had to come from the factor of x minus 2. So you picked pretty good because there's only one of the choices that has x minus 2. Good picking over there. Everybody see that on D? Now if I hadn't have got a 0 in there, I'd have marked D out and I'd have tried something else. Does that make sense? Page 3. Alright, this one's kind of there's two or three questions like number 6 on there, and they're fun, but they're different. So we've got those zeros, so that's the first thing I'm going to do is write those zeros in factor form. If I got a -2, that means I had the factor x plus 2. If I have a 1, that means I had the factor x minus 1. And if I have a 0, that means I had the factor x, because x equals 0 is where that would come from. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do before you start worrying about that other stuff, it says f of 2 equals 16. First thing you're going to do is simplify this. So I'm going to FOIL here. Gets me an x squared. Minus x and plus 2x is plus x, and then minus 2. Now I'm going to distribute my x. So I'm looking at x cubed plus x squared minus 2x. Okay, so that's how you're going to start this. Now, remember we talked about leading coefficient and all that kind of stuff. A is the symbol most of the time, the variable most of the time for a leading coefficient. So this would have something in front of it, some A in front of all that. So this is when you're going to use that other piece of info, the f of 2 equals 16. We're going to plug a 2 in for all the x's and set it equal to 16 and solve for A. So I'm going to say 16 equals A. Now I'm putting a 2 in for all the x's. Why 2? Because that's what the question said, f of 2. So I've got 2 cubed plus 2 squared minus 2 times 2. So that's 8 plus 4 is 12, minus 4 is 8. So 16 equals A times 8. So what's our A? How do we solve that for A? Yes, ma'am. Divide by 2. Or excuse me, I'm saying the answer. Divide by 8. And our A is 2. So you take that A, come back up here, and distribute it. So you would have a 2x cubed plus 2x squared minus 4x would be your final answer. Go ahead, you can ask me something.
You said to take the 2
Mm-hmm.
and plug it back in.
Where the A was, yeah.
Okay, so not this one?
No. We put it back here and
Okay.
distributed it. Yes, ma'am. Alright, 7. I was back on the calculator again, Dad Nabbit. It tells you to use it, and that is the easiest way on it. But, Alright, typed in, went to y equals, typed that graph in. It says it has a real zero between 1 and 4. So somewhere in that span, the graph is crossing the x-axis. That's what between 1 and 4 means, somewhere in between there. So we graph that thing. I don't remember exactly what it looks like, but we're looking for that place where it crosses between 1 and 4. So go to your y equals, graph it, and then move your cursor around until you find where that is. And it says round it to the nearest tenth. Now be careful, because A, B, and C are all pretty close. They're just separated by a tenth. What y'all got? Anybody got something? Now move your push your arrows and we'll see where your cursor is.
How do you zoom out?
Scoot it over till it gets right on the dot. Okay, so you're at 2.55. So what would that round to here? Right?
Oh, we're at 7.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I was thinking.
Did you get trace? Is that what you're doing? That's okay. So turn the trace off. Hit trace again, see if it'll go away. Now I'll move it and see. Oh, it's still jumping pretty big. Now move it and see if it'll stay somewhere. There we go. It doesn't stay on line. There you go. So round that to the nearest 10. 2.55 would round to what? Yep. Everybody get about 2.6? Anybody need any help? Go look at your graph. Hit graph. Yeah, just hit the graph. Now just use your arrows until it gets right on that. Scoot it over there. There you go. So 2.55 and then round to the nearest 10. Yep. Good, 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 good. Do you have it all right, Chase? You're usually pretty sharp on the calculator. Go ahead after you get that one done and graph 8. And I'll check 8 with you, see what you get on it. Caleb's got it, it is A. Let's check that, make sure you can get it. Then we'll be on page 4. On number 9, that Descartes' rule of signs, we didn't discuss. I skipped over that, so I'm going to just give you a quick rundown. It's easy to get number 9 right, so I'll tell you how to get it right.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It's okay since I skipped over it. Alright, let me write the function. I got 6x cubed minus 6x squared plus 5x plus 6. Alright, Descartes' rule of signs, you can figure out how many zeros you're going to have based on what happens to the signs in this thing. So all you're looking for is going from term to term and seeing if the sign changed or not. So this thing starts off with 6x cubed, which is a positive 6x cubed. So I'm just going to put a little positive underneath that. Then the next term is negative 6x squared. Okay, so it went from a positive to a negative, so it changed there. So I'm going to say so far there's been one sign change. Okay, then the next term after the negative 6x squared is a 5x, and that's a positive. So here it went from a negative to a positive. That's different. So there's been another sign change. Okay, my 6 is a positive. So there it went from positive to a positive. That didn't change. Stayed positive. So I had 1 plus 1. I had 2 sign changes, which according to Descartes' rule of signs means there's going to be 2 positive zeros. There's only one choice that has that. Now, people that are thinking, we're like, well, what if there's 2 choices that have that? How do I know about the negatives? That's a legitimate good question. I don't think you'll run into that on your test, but if you do, yeah, if you do, you would change all the x's to a negative and then do the same thing. Simplify them down. Alright, back to some good old synthetic division for 10 and 11. 10 says k is -4, so I set that up. Excuse me, I got a 5x to the 4th, a 3x cubed, a 6x squared, a -6x, and a 68. So what I'm looking for here, and you could have also just plugged -4 into the equation and solved it that way. That would work also. All I'm doing is seeing what I get in my remainder spot, and that'll be my answer here. So I'll drop my 5 times -4 is -20. Add and get -17. -17 times -4 is 68. Add and get 74. 74 times -4 is -296. Add and get -302. -302 times -4 is 1,208. Add and get 1,276. So that is your final on that one. Alright, on 11 says use factor theorem to figure out if that's a factor or not. What you're looking for on that is if your remainder is a 0. So if you get a 0 remainder, yes, it's a factor. If you don't, no, it's not. So I have a 3x cubed, a 2x squared, a -7x, and a 2. The factor is x plus 2, so that means it's a -2 that goes outside. So I just do synthetic division. A 0 in the remainder is a yes. Anything other than a 0 is a no. Drop my 3. 3 times -2 is -6. I add and get -4. -4 times -2 is 8. I add and get 1. 1 times -2 is -2. I add and get 0. So that is a yes. Number 12. I know that the ends have to both open down because it's a -1/5, so that could be A or B. Flip the page and you mark C and D out, so just got to decide between A and B. So grab that in your calculator, look at your table if you need to. Can't tell in a picture which one do y'all think it is, A or B. B is correct. Now 13's not near as friendly. There were a couple of those choices on 13 that are pretty close together. My A is a negative, so I know it's got to go downhill first. A does, B does, turn the page and look. C does, D does not. So you can mark D out. First period, we're kind of confused between A and C. What do y'all think on number 13?
C.
Nope. It is A. And those are close together, so it's hard to tell. My deciding factor was, and when I plugged it in my calculator, 0, 0 was a point. On A, you can tell 0, 0 is there. On C, it's barely above 0, 0. So that was the decider on that. Alright, 14's a fun one. I kind of did a mixture of calculator and non-calculator on it. So let me get a rectangular drawn here and we'll do it. Alright, so it says on 14 you got a rectangular piece of cardboard measuring 16 by 18 inches. We're going to make it into a box by cutting the corners out and folding up the sides. So I'm going to take a chunk out of each of the corners and fold them up to make it a box. It says X is the length that I'm cutting out of each of these sides. So I'm taking that off of all of them. Alright, then it wants to know what's the maximum volume of this box. So volume, you know, is length times width times height. So my length right now, it was 18, but I cut an X out of both ends. So what was 18 is now 18 minus 2X. My width was 16, but I cut an X out of both ends. So now my width is 16 minus 2X. So there's length times width. What's the height? How tall is the box going to be when I fold it on those corners? How tall are the corners?
X.
X. So there's your height. Very good. So 18 minus 2x times 16 minus 2x times x. Now what I did, and there's lots of ways to solve this problem, but here's where I went to the calculator. I went to my y equals, like I was going to graph that, and type that in exactly like it was. I didn't even worry about foiling it. I just kept it simple and typed it in exactly like it was. And then I went to my table, because it wanted to know where is the maximum volume. So I went to my table and looked for where my y value was the biggest. So do that and get a gander at that, and we'll see what I was talking about.
What are we doing?
Go to your table, and you're looking for where your y is the biggest. So look at your y's here. It went from 0 to 224 to 336 to 360, and then it started coming back down. So your biggest y is going to be in that area. So which choice would be there? Okay, you see what I was telling him? See, the y's are getting bigger, 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 but then they start going down. So then around in that 360. Did y'all find it over there, Aaron? Good, Rachel? Michael? Caleb? Good. Did you get it back here? Good. Alright, 15 is another yes or no. Yes if we get a 0 in the remainder, no if we don't. So let me set that dude up. I got 6x to the 4th, 13x cubed, negative 2x squared, 1x and a 4th. It says x plus 2, which means I'm putting a negative 2 out there. Drop my 6. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Add and get 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Add and get negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. Add and get 9. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. I add and get negative 14. So I did not get a 0, which makes that a no way, Jose. Okay, 16 says give all possible rational zeros. It doesn't say find the zeros, it says just give the possibilities. When we did that in class, we did the factors of the constant, 18, positive, negative, 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. That's everything that I can multiply to make 18. Over the factors of the leading coefficient. Leading coefficient's negative 2, so that'd be 1 and 2. Now, when we did it in class, I actually wrote all those out. I did 1 over 1, 1 over 2, 2 over 1, 2 over 2, 3 over 1, 3 over. I went and listed them all. But you can look at this and eliminate some choices. First one I eliminated was A, because A doesn't have anything over 2. I should have a 1 half and a 3 halves and a 9 halves, right? A didn't include any of that. Then I went down and I eliminated D, because D has 1 over 18. Well, 18's not on the bottom. So I eliminated D. So then I was just deciding between B and C, which one of those had the right ones. Well, B doesn't have a 3 halves, and I should have a 3 halves, shouldn't I? So it's got to be C. Alright, we got 2 problems involving I's, and they're both on the bottom of this page, 17 and 19. So getting to do the I's here on number 17. It's not bad, just 2 out of 20. Starting off, it gives me the zeros, so I'm going to write those in factors. If I have a 0 of 3, that comes from x minus 3. If I have a 0 of I, that's x minus I. And a 0 of negative I would be x plus I. Now, I chose to FOIL the i's first, because the ones with the i's, because they're going to cancel out. And that's actually a difference of squares. I would have x squared plus ix and minus ix cancels out. And then minus I squared is the same as negative 1. So minus negative 1 makes that a plus 1. Okay, now I got to bring down that x minus 3 and multiply it also. So I got me x cubed minus 3x squared plus x minus 3. Okay, now this is like that question that we had earlier where we got to figure out what the a is. It says f of 2 is equal to 15. So I'm going to say 15 equals a, and I'm going to plug a 2 in for all those x's. Because it said an f of 2, so that's what I'm plugging in. Screw it up so we can see it. Maybe not quite so far. Alright, so I got 3 times 2 cubed minus 3 times 2 squared plus 2 minus 3. So 2 cubed is 8 times 3 is 24. 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12. 24 minus 12 is 12 plus 2 is 14. Minus 3. I've messed up somewhere. I see where I messed up. Anybody else see it? No? This just said x cubed and I wrote 3x cubed. Nobody? So that shouldn't be a 3 there, which means this is just an 8. 8 minus 12 is negative 4, plus 2 is negative 2, minus 3 is negative 5. So I have 15 equals a times negative 5, which means what's your a going to be if you divide by negative 5? Negative 3. So just like before now, you're going to take that negative 3 and you're going to come here and distribute it to everything. So it's going to make this be a negative 3x cubed plus a 9x squared minus a 3x plus a 9. Right? Just multiply all those by that negative 3. I don't remember, Michael. Let me look and see. Number 17, yes, is B, yes. Alright, a couple different ways you could do 18. Probably, if I'm guessing, your easiest way might be to graph both of those equations and just compare them. I remember some stuff we did in Algebra 2, and I did it that way. If you look at what they have written there, let me, whoops, I probably just messed this whole thing up. Yep, pretty good. Let's see. Well, that's not what I want. Let's see what happens if I do this. We're almost done. We can finish it without this, but let's go and have the 2 functions. 18 negative 1x. Oh, I lost it. Okay. So it's asking you to compare those graphs on 18. So and what we talked about when we did this stuff in Algebra 1, when one's got a negative and the other doesn't, it's a reflection. So you know you're dealing with a reflection, so be zoning in and looking for reflection choices. Then the other thing, when you got a plus or minus just stuck on the end, that means a vertical translation. So this that has the minus 10 stuck on the end means you're taking that vertically 10 units down. So that had to be C. All right, we're ready for 19, the other I one. Okay, says you also have lots of zeros you have to plug in on your synthetic division because you got a 1x to the 4th, a 0x cubed, negative 5x squared, 0x, and negative 36. Okay, it tells you that 1 0 is negative 2i. So we're going to have to multiply by i's when we're doing this here. Drop your 1. 1 of them's negative 2i is negative 2i. Add 0 and negative 2i is negative 2i. Okay, here's the good news where your i's are going to go away for a second. Because when we multiply negative 2i times negative 2, negative 2i times negative 2i, the negative 2 times negative 2 turns to a positive 4. I times I is I squared. I squared is the same as negative 1. So 4 times negative 1. Okay, you add on that and you get, what's my? You get negative 9. Now we're going back to business with i's again, because negative 9 times negative 2i is an 18i. Add there, 0 and 18i is 18i. But now you're going to see the i's go away again. 18 times negative 2 is negative 36, and I times I is I squared. I squared is the same as negative 1, so negative 36 times negative 1 is a positive 36. Now first period started cheering there because we got a 0. The problem told me that was a 0. If I would not have gotten a 0 there, I would have screwed up. So I don't know what they were so excited about. Bad news, this started off as an x to the 4th, so I'm only now at an x cubed. So I have to do another level of synthetic division. I do not have to do guess and check though. If I had a 0 of negative 2i, I also have to have a positive 2i. We talked about that in class, so I'm going to start with that. And that, well, I was going to say it lets you mark a choice out, but it doesn't. They all have a positive 2i in them. 1 times 2i is 2i. Add and get 0. 0 times 2i is 0. Add and get negative 9. Negative 9 times 2i is negative 18i. Add and get 0. Started off as a 4th power, then we were a 3rd. Now you're a squared. And this is easy to solve because this is x squared minus 9 is all you're looking at. You can set that equal to 0 and solve algebraically. It's a 0. Or you can factor it using difference of squares, which gets you a 3 and a negative 3.
What was the first way that you used it?
Add 9 to both sides and just solve it algebraically. D, yep. Because 9 is being subtracted, so move that over. You have x squared equals 9. Undo your squared by square rooting.
Yeah.
You move that. Okay, you got just one left, and it's one of these. It is probably the easiest one. I get why it's on here, because we've been doing the rational functions, so they're wanting you to think of it as a graph or whatever. But it tells you what to plug into x, and so then it just becomes a computation problem. So there's really nothing to it. It says that solve for the cost per ton when x is equal to 10. So you got 312,500 divided by 10 plus 625, or you could say 635. Grace has got $492.13 on her calculator.
Alright, quick question.
Quick answer.
How did you actually get
To 19. What's a, did you understand where I got x squared minus 9? Okay, this started off as an x to the 4th. So after we divided out 1x, these answers would be x cubed. It always goes down by 1 power. So we did that 2 times, so x to the 4th came down to an x squared. So it's 1x squared, there wasn't an x, and then minus 9. That's where that came from. So then if you don't understand this factoring, 9's being subtracted, add 9 to both sides. So you'd have x squared equals 9. Undo the squared by square rooting. What's the square root of 9?
Well, no, okay, now I got that one. How'd you get like the
Oh, well, negative 2i, they gave me 2 i's in all of them. And then 3, it's only in that one. So it's D.
Can you check to see if this one is here? I have all the answers to it, so if
So,
not,
oh, good, good.
Yeah, I'll check.
Any other questions before I start checking on that? Alright. If the camera stop, Grace, and I'll check.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Paul. Oh, it's still recording. Somebody's gonna get